This conversation about building up your blueprint. It's time to take it, cause time is wasted. Go grind and chase it, don't lose it. This generation need integration with information to move with. An inclination that is abiding in entertaining improvement. Yep.
What's going on, Blueprint Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Respect My Blueprint podcast. I am your host, your Blueprint Mastermind, where we give you the gems as well as all of the tips on the blueprint on being able to go ahead and level up to the next level and to success. And today, I want you guys to buckle up, all right? Because today's guest, I have a special treat for you. Listen, this handsome young gentleman that is here appearing on the screen here, okay? He just didn't climb the ladder. He actually built a skyscraper out of grit and vision, okay? Listen, this gentleman, he's been able to go ahead and rock the roads from a school bus driver all the way to coaching over 200 people in over 50 countries. Believe it or not, that's amazing in itself. And, you know, Dennis has been known as the ultimate maximizer, right? And for over 40 years, he's been dropping timeless principles on every economic group and spiritual walk of life, forging leaders who refuse to settle for just good enough. No, that's not what we're looking for here. So he's the author of the best-selling book, Maximizing You, which is the 45 Principles for Success, which gives you the playbook for leveling up on physically, mentally, and spiritually. So we're going to hear from Dennis as he specializes in purpose, mindset, overcoming obstacles, practical spirituality, leadership, and also everything in between. As you guys can see, I've been rolling out the red carpet for our guest here, so I am ready to go ahead and get into it and hear from our guest, my friend. I want to go ahead and welcome Dennis Dowdell. I apologize. Dennis, how you doing, my friend?
Wesley, thanks so much for having me on. And what a brilliant idea for a podcast. I mean, man, this is great because, you know, we all need a blueprint. Anytime you build anything, the first thing you need is the blueprint, whether it's a building or whether it's a business, or the reality is if it's a life. We need a blueprint for buildings, business, and we also need a blueprint for life. So I love the concept of your show, and I'm just honored to be able to be here with you and share with your audience.
You know, first of all, we're honored to have you here because, as I said, you know, handsome young man here. But one thing is safe to say, you are overflowing the cup with wisdom, right, and experience. So I'm pretty sure you're going to drop a lot of great gems for us here, which I want to start off. I know we've had our initial introduction, we've met and everything like that. We got to know each other, but the audience doesn't know who you are, Dennis. So Dennis, I was hoping if you can just give them a quick elevator pitch of who is Dennis? Okay, and what does Dennis do a little bit here?
Well, I tell you, I mean, when I graduated from college, and I was kind of almost passed on probation out of college because I barely made it, okay? I had a 1.98 GPA. But my education in college was more about people and learning principles of life than it was, you know, that formal informational type of education. And so when I got out of college, I thought, you know, I want to be able to develop a career where, and I had two things in mind that I really wanted. I wanted to be able to make a difference for people, and I wanted to be able to travel the world. And so when I first got out, I thought, you know, I don't want to just jump into a job, you know, so I got a job driving a school bus, and it turned out to be the perfect job for me because, I mean, it really was, I mean, considering, you know, because what I did is I would work in the morning and I would work in the afternoon, but I had the middle of the day off where I could, you know, have time to go on interviews, you know, look at companies and do different things. And so it worked out real well for me. The problem was it was working well for me too long, okay? I mean, because I love the kids. I love taking them to the sporting events and all this kind of stuff, you know. And by the way, my commitment to make a difference, you know, it was already there. When I was driving my bus, I would put a little proverb of the day on the dashboard. So when the kids were walking out, they could read this proverb of the day and, you know, as they're going off. And I never knew how much a difference that would make until one day I didn't have one. And 3 or 4 kids going, hey, where's the saying? Hey, where's the phrase? Hey, where is it? But, you know, when coming up on my 30th birthday, I thought, you know, man, I better get on with this thing. If I don't find a career pretty soon, man, it's going to be too late. That's thinking of a 30-year-old, And I think, I need to get on with life here. And so I really made a commitment then to get out and really start searching. And just so you know, and for those of you who are looking for a career in a life venture, I actually turned down 2 jobs that would have paid me more than I was looking for.
Really?
But the reason was, and that's the response I get,
Uh-huh.
the reason was it would have been a job. And I didn't want to get up, go to work, go home, go to bed type of life. I understand that in today's world, we have this process of leveling up, right? Go work for a company for 5-6 years, change, level up, get another company to level up. I didn't want that. I'm a person who's loyal, and I wanted to be loyal, and I wanted to find something that I could make a difference and then do that for the rest of my life. And so I stumbled across a little startup company up in Beverly Hills. And I drove up for what I thought was a one-on-one interview. They threw me in with 70 people, big enough for 40. And I thought, good night, what am I doing here?
Right.
But, I'm thinking, okay, well, listen, I drove an hour and a half to get up here. I don't want to sit in traffic all the way home in Los Angeles, if you know what traffic's like there,
Oh, man. I get it.
I sat there and they talked about the product. And I said, okay, that makes sense. Okay, it was a health company. And so, I said, okay, people feel good, get more energy, lose weight, get, build up. Okay, good. But then they started drawing squares and circles on the board. And I thought, oh my God, this is some kind of sales.
Right.
I don't like sales. I don't want sales. And I'm not going to do sales.
Okay.
And fortunately for me, it was too crowded for me to get out without being rude. So I said, well, when this is over, then I'm leaving. And at the end of that presentation, the founder of the company, a 24-year-old kid, starting this company. I was just 9th grade dropout. And I'm hearing this kid now for the first time. And I'm thinking, who is this kid? He's got passion. He's got purpose. He's got conviction. He's got direction. He seems to know exactly where he's going. He seems to know exactly how he's going to get there. Blueprint, right?
Yeah,
Blueprint.
Okay. I love it. Right.
And I'm thinking, I don't know about the company or the job, but that guy, it would be worth it just to spend time with this guy if he would bring me on, right?
Wow.
And so,
Right.
So it was the guy who got me. And so I got started. And the first thing I told him, I said, listen, I hate sales. And he said, Denny, he says, listen, don't worry about it. I said, what do you mean don't worry about it? I said, I'm looking at all these squares and circles. No. He says, don't you work with college kids? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you do with them? He said, I help them solve problems. And he said, what kind of problems? I said, problems. School problems, family problems, work problems, just problems. And he says, do any of them have weight problems? I said, Mark, they're in college. You never heard of the freshman 15? And he said, so, well, do any of them have financial problems? I said, Mark, they're in college. What's the point here? I don't get it. He said, Denny, he says, now you have 2 more problems to solve. And now listen, Wesley, I'd heard that before. But at that moment, the penny dropped. And I said, whoa. I never have to sell anything. All I have to do is help people solve problems they have up to that point in time never been able to solve. Okay, now how do I know that? Because they're talking to me, see? And so I think all I have to do is help them solve their problem. If they don't like my solution, they keep their problem, I keep my product, we're both happy. And I thought, gosh, the pressure's gone. All I got to do is have fun doing what I love to do. And so I get to help people. And here's what he said. And this was the clincher.
Right.
He said, gang, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and make a difference, right? Customer by customer, city by city, state by state, country by country, and you're going around the world. And I said, wait a minute, make a difference.
Hold on now.
My ears opened up again. I said, now, how does this work, right? And I thought, wow, if I could make a difference and travel the world. And so that started. And, prior to that time, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get it. And I really never had anybody to guide or direct me. And when I got started with this company, this gentleman, the founder of this company, Mark Hughes, he became the first real live one-on-one personal mentor that I had. And I tell you something, spending time with this young kid, he had a life perspective that was just unbelievable.
Well, he was only 24 years old at that time.
Yeah, ninth grade dropout. I mean, he got in trouble with the law, and the judge told him, he's standing before the judge, and the judge says, "Listen," he said, "you can go to juvie hall, or you can go to this rehab center. Well, they'll mentor you and guide you as to how to live your life." Well, needless to say, he made the right decision, and he went with these mentors. And these mentors instill and embedded to him, work habits and principles for life and how life worked and how to have a view of life that would make a difference for others. And so that started it, and it was just amazing. And we did. And we literally, and by the way, when he was talking about going around the world, we hadn't left Los Angeles yet. The company was only 4 months old.
So this is
already talking about the world. Who is this guy? Right. So, man, I was hanging on everything that he said and did. And he worked with me. I mean, he told me what to do. He showed me what to do. And then he let me do it until I could do it on my own. And it was his blueprint and process of building people and building a business was beyond anything I'd seen. See? And so that was real powerful. And that stuck with me. The first thing he taught me was learning to keep things simple. And then he realized, he taught me that, everything is no problem. Now, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, but I solve problems. He says, exactly. And he says, that's why everything is no problem, because whatever problem you encounter isn't a problem. It's an opportunity to grow, because every problem is solvable. And I thought, wow, and there's so many problems out there. I figured, man, that's real job security, because if I'm a problem solver, then there's an endless supply of problems. I have an endless supply of clients.
You're pretty much right. Right. And which leads me to segue into my next question here, because, first of all, tremendous story, right? Because going off pure conviction of someone who, in most instances, people would have had a degree of reservations, right? You're talking about getting into something completely new, young CEO founder of this venture and following him in this grandiose vision that he has, right? But you ultimately made the right decision and had a great judgment at that point, because it has led you to not only have an extraordinary successful career, but had you lead nearly 250,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 250,000 people in your journey of leadership. So I wanted to ask you, how has that journey has been, being able to go ahead in your career to lead or build up a resume of helping over 250,000 people?
Well, and just for your audience, it probably sounds more impressive than it is. Okay? and it's big. But by the way, that 250,000, that's just my personal team. Okay. There's 2 million people in the company that I've had the opportunity to impact and influence. Okay. That's my personal team. All right. But the point is that the success that I've had isn't really what I've done. My real success is what others have done as a result of what I've done. And see, that's the brilliance of it. And that was the brilliance of the blueprint, is the idea is listen, develop the skills, create the accomplishments, and then duplicate that in other people. See, a lot of people look at success as what they've accomplished. I don't look at my accomplishments as my success. My accomplishments is just what I've done to stimulate success.
It is to be able to replicate and stimulate. Right. I see what you're saying.
My accomplishments are it's my tool belt. It's what I use, and it gives me credibility so that people listen better. But so when I've learned what I've learned, and then I can teach it to others, and then they can teach others. It follows the old biblical principle of discipleship, and it's very, very interesting. And because I learned that concept there, because when Jesus left his disciples, right, what did he tell them? He said, hey, go into Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and the uttermost parts of the world, right? Start local, work global. See, and I taught that, right?
Right.
But that was the idea. And he said, go teach them the things that I taught you.
Right.
And then the great apostle Paul, okay, who wrote 17 of the books in the New Testament, right? And so he's talking to his protege. He was a mentor to Timothy, and he tells Timothy, go teach others the things that I taught you, right? So that they can teach others also. And so here's Paul, Timothy, others, and others also. And I thought, that's how to do it. That's how to make that impact. I mean, think about it. 12 everyday off the wall, characters that Jesus picked up on the Sea of Galilee, right? Fishermen, tax collectors. I mean, they weren't the prized possessions of the planet, right? He takes these 12 people, transforms the world, and today we've got 6 billion Christians floating around the world because of 12 men.
Wow. Yeah.
And so
that's the power of discipleship, pretty much, right? I see what
and that's what I learned in the building process, is that if I can impact others, then they can pick that, other people. So that's where the 250 got. Ultimately, you'll love this. This will just show you that each one of you listening here today, each one of you can make a huge impact on your family, your community, your state, your country, the world, just by zeroing in. Because those 250,000 people all came from 4 people.
4 people.
4, not 40, 4, right?
Okay.
I invested in 4 people. I embedded the principles of truth and success into their lives and developed them as not just in their actions and activities, but in their being, in their character, and developing the integrity to build something that will last. Anybody can build a quick building, but you want a building of integrity. And so I instilled this into them, and then I worked with them to work with their team. And those 4 got a bunch of people, and those people got a bunch of people, and everybody continued this process to the point where I last checked, it was over 250,000 people. So and that's why I say success isn't what you do. Success is what others do as a result of what you do. See, my prize isn't when I'm done. Listen, I just got it, right? But my prize is what they've done.
Right. Okay. Which my point is, now, I'll give your entire 45 principles of success, because if those who haven't had a privilege of reading your book, I'm pretty sure after this episode, you'll sell a few more copies based upon the experiences you share. What's the one single, is the success of others, is that the guidepost principle that you utilize out in the entire 45, as far as those being able to go ahead and achieve success in their business life?
You actually hit on it, and just tells you, I can tell you've been around the block already. Okay, so you got this, right? But the first principle in the book out of the 45, the number one principle upon which every other principle in the book is built upon, and you'll catch on that as we go through our time together here. But the number one principle is so countercultural, because the culture is what? Hey, if it's going to be, it's up to me. Look out for number 1. Take care of yourself.
Right.
And it's all about me. And if you have any doubt about this, go on to any social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is. And what is it? It's all about the individual. Look at me. Look at my life.
And
the number one principle, which is so counterculture to that, is simply phrased this way. Number one principle, it's not about you. It's not about you. All of your talents, all of your skills, all of your abilities, it's not to make you look good and cause you to stand out.
Right.
All the talent, skills, gifts, and abilities that we have been given to us by design to enable us to make a greater impact on other people. It's to make other people, to provide and help other people maximize their potential. Now, listen, nature is a great teacher, okay? And so look at this, and this is what I love. See, if it's in nature, you can pretty well figure out it's a true deal. See,
right.
Trees don't produce fruit for themselves. The sun doesn't provide heat for itself. The flowers don't create a fragrance for themselves, right? See, they do it all for others. The tree produces fruit for other people. The sun produces heat for other people. Flowers create a fragrance for other people. The river doesn't drink its own water. You see what I'm saying? And so the idea here is all they have, all they possess, all that they do in their lives, like as a tree, that takes all that it has and it absorbs everything from its environment, the ground, to be able to produce fruit for other people. And therein lies the secret to life and business and success. Number one, it affects everything. And it's amazing because that's what I've done.
As a matter of fact, because you mentioned that life, business, and success, and many of the viewers that's watching this, the audience here, like I mentioned, they're aspiring or newly minted entrepreneurs. And, it's so easy to focus on profitability, right? To be able to say, hey, I'm getting into the business. I'm starting this side hustle. I want to take care of my family. I want to take care of myself and just be profit driven or having monetary, having that monetary value that's being that guiding post. But I'm glad that you mentioned that in order to be able to achieve that breakthrough and what you need to implement in your blueprint is these three things of, how in life, business, and success. So in your experience, because you have been, I'm pretty sure you have plenty of examples. If you could share one example of a mentee or someone you've worked with, and you've shared some of these principles in guiding them to be able to hit that breakthrough.
Well, I think that, that's this idea of this is understanding that as they work for other people. And once they grasp the hold of it, Zig Ziglar says, actually Jim Rohn quoted Zig all the time on this, and Jim was one of my personal mentors. But he said, if you help enough people get what they want, you can get everything that you want, you see? And it's just so powerful. And that's where, the old saying comes in. If you want to be the leader of all, you've got to be the servant of all. Well, why is that? I mean, some people say, wait a minute, I don't want to be a servant. I want to have a servant, right? And so I say, no. But see, a servant is simply someone who's excited about helping other people to become successful in what they do. And when we can do that, see, that's what makes a difference. I mean, now just think of it. Think the reality of this. Okay. Now I've done this in business, but maybe sports would be a little different illustration that they can identify with. Right. Suppose you play sports, you grew up playing sports, and you were just unbelievable in your sport, and you became an all-star. And then you went to college and you went to the top college, you got MVP. Then you go into the pros and you go to the pros and then you become MVP, player of the year in the pros. And I mean, you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I mean, it's just, and your life is, you've just thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been incredible for you. Right?
Heck yeah, of course.
Now, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel proud of yourself for what you've done. But now let's look at reality. Your son grows up. And you're teaching him how to play sports, and you teach him how to be disciplined, and you teach him how to, perfect his skills and be disciplined and create the habits. And he goes to college, and he's MVP. He gets recruited by the pros. He gets into the World Series, and he becomes an MVP of the league, and he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Which induction feels better, yours?
Oh man,
or your son's?
Oh man, it goes without saying, if you're a true parent in heart, seeing your offspring and your seed be able to go ahead and hit that mountaintop is definitely more rewarding, without a shadow.
So when I see I have 300 people on my team who have reached the top 1% income bracket. Okay, that's a lot of people making a lot of money in an industry that's extremely difficult, what I did. All right. And yet I created 300 people who are in the top 1% income bracket for our country. And so, the idea there is that these principles, which some people think, it seems countercultural to some people, they're really the principles that create success. See, caring more for your customers, that they get your customers' results than you do about your money. Caring more about your team's, success than you do about your success. See, that's it. And you said something earlier, a little bit ago, and I just want to touch on that because it's a major mistake that people have. If people are pursuing the cash.
Yeah.
And for my team, I say, listen, guys, whatever you do, the cash is great, but don't pursue the cash. Pursue
Yeah.
the difference. Pursue the cause.
Difference. I like that. Pursue
Yeah.
the difference. Yes.
We're a cause-oriented company that happens to make a lot of cash. But if you're a cash-oriented company that's just looking for a cause, you're in trouble. And I tell my guys, if you're looking for position, possession, and power and money, rich fame and fortune, I said, gang, you better find a different mark, right? Because you know why? How many millionaires do you know who are living on Skid Row today? Because money comes, money goes. How many times does it just turn around and disappear overnight? I mean, look back in 2008 when you had huge banks, and one day they're gone.
Yeah.
Look how many rich and famous people commit suicide, and they had the fame and fortune and money, position, possession, and power. Why? Because we need a cause. We need to live with purpose, on purpose. And see, here's the thing. And this is why you don't want to have the position, possession, power, and cash as your goal, because it can disappear tomorrow. But the cause never disappears. The cause is always with us. Our purpose remains constant. See, my definition of success gives the greatest security you can have. My definition of success is living life according to your values. You see, that way, even if you're a janitor or you're a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if you're living life according to your values, you have the ultimate of success, because you're living life according to who you are, who you were designed to be, and there's a satisfaction when you know that you've maintained your integrity and maintained and followed the plan and the blueprint and the design for your life. And when you do that, it doesn't make any difference what you do. You can do anything you want, whatever you love.
Of course. Of
And
course.
life will be so much better. And that's made a huge difference for my team. I make sure they know how special they are.
Well, as a matter of fact, let's talk a little bit about your team. You know, you said you've went ahead and produced some of the top income and earners in your company. I mean, if you could share, have they been able to hit, 6-figure status, 7-figure status?
Yeah, some of them 8-figure stats.
Woo!
And now I want you to, and I want your audience to hear this. Okay.
Okay.
I have a lot of people on my team who make more money than I do. More money than I do.
I think back to the story you shared as being the parent, you hitting the Hall of Fame, but passing all those principles and that teaching to your offspring or a disciple or mentee and watching them hit that pinnacle, that's more rewarding for you, right?
I mean, there's no question. I mean, people say, well, gosh, doesn't that kind of disappoint you? And I said, are you kidding? I'm looking for the next guy who's going to make more money than I do.
Because again, more fulfillment, like I said.
Yeah, it's not the money.
So let me ask, what led you to writing the book? Because your book maximize you, which it gives the 45 principles, right? And this is a book that has touched not only your team, but also it's been such a profound book that it's also been recognized as a bestseller, if I'm not mistaken. So what led you to go ahead and produce this book here?
Well, it's very interesting because, I flunked English twice.
Oh my God. It's not even a judge a book on its cover, right?
But no, and this is the value and the important. As you continue to grow, we need to continue to grow. And in order for us to grow, we need models and we need mentors who have been where we want to go. Where do I want to go? Who's already been there? How can I get them to mentor me? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I've had the great fortune. In fact, the book is filled with the principles I learned from 5 major mentors in my life. And one of those mentors is a gentleman named Bob Beal, who he's an executive coach, executive mentor for, CEOs and for, C-suite type of executives. And so I had the opportunity to meet him about some years ago. And we just started working, and he guided and directed me. Well, a couple of years ago, he says, Denny, he says, you've amassed this tremendous team of people. He said, tell me something. He said, what are the principles that you used to develop your team and your organization so that it lasts, so that it's not just an up and down, but it's something that continues. And I
Right.
said, well, lots of them. And he said, well, make me a list. And I said, all right. So I just start, making a list, for things to change. You got to change, change all shoulds to coulds, and be more interested than interesting. And I'm making all this list.
Right.
I give him the list, and he looks at it and he says, "Wow." He says, "Well, Denny," he says, "I think you've got your first book." And
Just
I'm
like,
like, "Whoa." He says, "All you got to do is just write a chapter on each one of those principles." And I said, "Wow, I can do that because I've already done it."
you didn't even know. You wasn't even intentionally trying to do it. Right.
Yeah. And that's what I did. And I'm telling you, it's been an amazing experience. And I'll tell you why too, because, my family, okay, they watched me succeed. They saw me going from poor poverty, holes in my jeans before it was fashionable. Okay. In my day, it was the poor people who had the hole in the jeans. And today it's the rich people who have the holes in the jeans, right?
Willingly doing it, right? So I get it.
But they watched me go from poverty to success, from living in a house with 6 guys to, the first $1 million home in my company, And so, this was back in the 80s. So they watched all this. So they saw what I did. But what I realized is they don't know how I did it. They weren't there to see the principles in action.
Wow, they didn't see the big mix sauce then. No.
They would come and hear me speak once in a while, but they never really saw it. And so what was real interesting is, as I wrote this book, I thought, wow, now I am clarifying, I am putting in writing. And when I had to go through these principles and put it in writing, it clarified it for me. I also clarified it for the people so that they could say, hey, I can do that, which is one of the great things, attributes of success, is that I can do that. But I had the opportunity now to leave a legacy to my family and their children and their children's children, because the book will be here forever. I'm going to be gone. But all that I've done now is in print so that they can take what I've done, apply it, and save themselves all the heartache and headaches that I had to go through in order to develop this.
Right.
So, it's a key. And that's a key in leaving a legacy. See, that's what we want to do, because there's 4 major steps in the process.
Okay.
First thing we need to do is we want to become a servant, you see.
Naturally.
And because a lot of people, because when we're problem oriented, guess what? What are we thinking about when we're problem oriented? We're thinking all about me, my problems, my pain, my suffering, right? But
Right.
when you become a servant, what happens? Okay, when you become a servant,
Now you
now
the other person, you're
I'm
selfless.
forced to think about
Right.
the other person.
Right.
See, and if I can help them solve their problems, what happens? My problems just disappear. You see?
Naturally, right. It's the natural law of reciprocating, right? Like it's a boomerang effect. Like, hey, I throw the boomerang out there to tackle an issue or solve a problem. Naturally, the solution is going to come back, and I'm going to feel that effect as well too. Which to clarify for the audience, man, you've mentioned that you've been the first in your company to touch $1 million home, getting these great accomplishments, which, by the way, which company have you been able to achieve this great success under?
I'm celebrating next month. I will be 45 years with Herbalife International.
A 45 year. Listen, I'm revealing my age, but a lot of the audience know this already. Man, you've been with Herbalife longer than I've been alive. My God.
I always tell people, you got to watch these kids, man. They could grow up and be something one day,
Man, and to hear that. So when you first walked into that seminar in Beverly Hills, was the company just starting at this point? Was it just sprouting off the ground?
It was 4 months old. It had just opened the doors 4 months earlier. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been amazing, So, when you look at this, see, so when we become a servant, and that comes back to, it's not about you using our talent skills to help other people. Zig Ziglar, help enough people get what you want. See, if you serve the people, you not only earn the money, but you earn a reputation for helping people succeed. And if you help all these other people succeed, say, hey, would you help me? And so what happens is you become attractive.
Yeah. It's editing good, Dennis. We both know that, right?
That's right. That's right. And so they see when you serve other people, success isn't automatic. See, and that's why I was sharing earlier. Success isn't the goal. If success is the goal, you're in trouble
Yeah, big
because what you
problem.
succeed at today, you can fail at tomorrow. You see, and I mean, in the business, you can rise up today, but so the goal is not success. The goal is significance.
Significance.
See,
So
I
the
want to become
instead of success, significance. I like that.
See, success is just my tool belt. Whatever I've succeeded in is just another, every area of success that I have is just another tool in my tool belt that I have the opportunity to influence somebody else so that I can help them accomplish what I accomplished without all the headache. Jim Rohn says there's two ways to learn.
Right.
PE, and OPE.
P.
P, personal experience. Now, I'm
Okay.
sure most of us, and especially a lot of people in the audience, can understand that personal experience is painful and very costly
Right. That's the school of hard knocks, right? We all
because
have
we can make a lot of mistakes.
exactly.
But OPE is learned from other people's experience.
Experience. Wow.
And that's what I learned to do. I learned to learn from Jim Rohn's experience, Rick Warren's experience, Mark Hughes's experience, Bob Beal's experience, Larry Thompson. I had these 5 major mentors who had major success all around the world, major global impact. And I said, man, I want that. And by following and spending time and following their principles, see, the principles are so real and so practical because principles are constant. Strategies come and strategies go. Okay, we evolve in the strategies, we evolve in the process, but the concepts are constant. See, and so what I've done my whole life is I've never taught the strategies. I've only taught the concepts. I've only taught the principles because principles work whether you're smart or stupid, whether
No.
you're skilled or unskilled,
Period. No matter what.
where you came from or anything else. If you follow the principles just work.
That's
Whether
it.
you understand it or not, people say that doesn't make sense. It may not make sense, but it works.
It works,
And if
right?
you'll work the principle will work for you. And when we do that, see, then we impact people's lives. Jim Rohn told me one time, he said, the greatest compliment you can ever get is if somebody uses your name in their testimony of their journey.
That means you made it in that impact in their life
That's
that
right.
they're able to share that in the
That's
testimony.
exactly right.
This is a great segue to, one of the next questions here as we're ready to wrap up is because you mentioned PE, personal experience. We've all lived through that, the school of hard knocks, right? Us going through adulthood, having to just learn the things we don't know and just going through it. And then OPE, other people's experience, which that's where mentors come into play. And that really shortens the learning curve and help you. That's the cheat code or quote unquote, the blueprint to help accelerate success. So I wanted to ask you, what's your secret sauce for mentoring high performers who laugh in the face of traditional mentorship or mentorship and leadership?
Well, it's a great question, Wesley, and thanks for asking that because it's really been one of the keys to my success, is having these major mentors. And we not only want to have a mentor in business, we want to. I mean, a lot of people we have training coaches for our workouts. We have business coaches. We have life coaches. We have sport coaches. We have coaches and mentors in different areas, right? And mentoring is different than coaching. Coaching is more strategy. Mentoring is more process. See, mentoring is a process. It's not a program. Okay, it's a process. It's not a program.
Program.
It focuses on men and women, not on methods or materials. See, when you focus on the people, on developing the people, one of my sublines in my company is maximize you as my company, but the subline is I build people, people build the business. See, if I can build the people will come up with their own strategies. The people will come up with their own materials.
Right.
You see, that's the idea. And so my job as a mentor is to serve them. What can I do to serve you? It's servanthood. It's not to have power, you see. The question, yes, exactly. See, a lot of people think the mentor is, well, let me tell you what I can do for you. No, stay away from that person. No, the question isn't what I can do for you. The question is, what can I do for you? That's what I'm.
Number one, okay. I like how you frame that. I like that.
Switch
Absolutely.
it. It's the opposite. It's not what I can do for you. No, it's what can I do for you? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to take all of my talent, skills, gifts, and abilities and successes and infuse it and save you the hard labor and work so that you can move faster. Why is it that we have so many more modern things in technology today than we've ever had before? Because it accumulates. Because people didn't have to start from ground zero. We've all got to start on based on what other people have gone on and done before us, and we build upon it. And that's the purpose of the book. That's the purpose of being a mentor, so that we can invest into people's lives and say, what can I do for you? What is it that you need? What do you need to know in order to do what you got to do?
Right.
What
Build
I want.
the building blocks of success to be able to get to the next step, pretty much. Instead of, like you said, starting from scratch.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, see what we want influence over people, not power. I don't want power over people. I want them to have their own power. I don't want them to, I don't want to have power over people. I want to empower them so that they can deal with people. See,
Right.
we work together as a team, to reach the maturity for our mission and purpose in life. And
Mm,
so mentoring is something that goes on for life. Mentoring, see, a lot of people think mentoring, I've got to have the material and the methods and all the information. Mentoring is developing hearts, not minds. It's
right. I see.
developing the heart. And I do a lot of work with Prison Fellowship. And Prison Fellowship is an organization that works with prisoners so that when they get out of prison, they stay out of prison.
Right.
Because a lot of the time, 40, 50, 60, 80% of the people who get out of prison are back in prison within 2 years. But people who go through this mentoring program with Prison Fellowship, the recidivism rate, in other words, the rate of return within 2 years, drops from 50, 60, 70, 80% down to 10, 12, 14%.
Wow, man,
How does that happen?
big difference. Right.
It's because they're not focused on their activities. They're focused on their character, on their being, on their heart. See, and if we can change them from the inside out, the activities will change automatically. We just need to change how they think. We just need to help them change how they see life, and they can understand the truth of life and principles that actually work. And if we can give them the principles, the activities will follow. A lot of people say, well, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to have. Right?
Right.
But reality is no, we don't do it that way. See, it starts with who I want to be. It starts with be, do, have, and then help. See, it's who I am. See, who I am determines what I do. If I'm a mean person, I'm going to do mean things. If I'm a kind person, I'm going to do kind things. If I'm a greedy person, I'm going to do selfish things. If I'm a generous person, I'm going to do charitable things. So the idea is that instill into them the integrity of your being. It's who you are. See, and when I realize that I am designed and made in the image of God, that instantly gives me great value.
Instantly.
I
Yeah.
find my identity in who I am, not what I do, not what I feel, but who I am. And see, and so if I can develop the whole person and develop integrity with an individual, the activities take care of themselves. And so we change from the inside out. See?
So, and with that being said, I'm glad you mentioned that because, a lot of, especially the younger generation, they're afraid to invest in mentorship, which that's a form of investing in yourself, right? And being able to invest in mentorship to have that, especially in today's culture where, you have social media where a lot of the younger generation growing up, they think that they'll be able to go ahead and have this DIY approach or the self-taught approach. But again, having a mentor is, as you've outlined here in today's episode, can be the determining factor of failure and success alongside of being able to go ahead and put others first as well too. So I'm glad you was able to highlight that and emphasize that in today's episode with the audience. And I feel the greatest value there was able to take away is those two things. Number one is the true importance of mentorship, because that's a principle I teach. But more importantly, being a servant, having that selfless attitude and selfless approach, which ultimately it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Muslim, whatever deity you believe in, you're still going to abide by the universal law of helping others and empowering others. Ultimately is going to bring that reverse effect to you as well, too. So one final, go ahead.
I just want to share one thing because sometimes people say, well, yeah, and because you mentioned the idea of affording a mentor. Now, some mentors will charge, coaches will charge,
Right.
but a mentor is different because a mentor is relationship, see? And so
Relationship.
I just want your audience to stop and think. Just think for yourself right now. Who's one of the wisest people that you personally know, that you know their name, that you've had an opportunity to encounter them in some form or fashion? Maybe you've never spent any time with them, but you recognize them, they would recognize your face. Who's the wisest person that you know that you admire? You admire their character, you admire who they are and what they've done. And I want to just encourage you to go up to that person and just say, hey, listen, I've observed you from afar and I've watched you and I admire you and I respect who you are. I respect the way you are. And I was wondering, would you be willing to spend an hour with me and let me buy you lunch and just tell me about who you are and how you've become the person, because I would like to be that way. Listen,
Wow.
I don't know anybody who would say no to that. You see what I mean?
It's a phenomenal nugget right there, because again, this is a very inexpensive but impactful approach or viewpoint, POV, that the audience can take with themselves, right? Because it's very intimidating sometimes to see that I admire this person, or maybe this person is outside of my reach, or maybe we'll just say no, right? We have the fear sometimes build that anxiety amongst us. But like you mentioned, hey, make it relationship based and let them know how much of an impact just by having this one tidbit of gratitude. Say, hey, can I take you out? An hour of your time would mean the world to me. And for the viewers out there, I hope you really tuned in on what Dennis just shared, because that is an excellent way where if you're following someone on social media, or if there's somebody that you aspire to follow in their footsteps, hey, guess what? Maybe their coaching program may be a little unaffordable for you, but guess what? It still doesn't hurt to reach out to them and say, hey, maybe if you could dedicate an hour of your time or even 30 minutes of your time, let me take you out to lunch. And that could be a great way to be an icebreaker and open up the door. So I really like that nugget that you was able to drop there, because I feel like it's something the audience can really help take away from this episode as well, too, which, by the way, I want to ask you one final thought. Of course, we discussed the power of mentorship. We discussed the power of serving and being a great disciple. But for the audience out there, if there's one tidbit, one piece of advice you would share with them as far as building their blueprint on how to maximize themselves in the world of business, what would that tip be?
Well, I just give you 3 points. One, we've already talked about.
Okay.
To realize that it's not about you. And
Right.
then the second point is the quote from Jim Rohn: for things to change, you've got to change. For things to get better, you've got to get better.
Right.
So you need to make the decision that I'm not going to live like this anymore. I am going to change, and I've got to figure out, what do I need to change in order to get what I want to get. And then the next thing, the third one, would be to learn to be more interested than interesting. Because when you're interested, you become interesting. Be interested in other people, who they are, where they came from, how they got to where they are. Isn't that pursuit of excellence? That's where we view the perspective when you're approaching somebody to ask them if they'll, let you take them to lunch. You see, I'm more interested in you than trying to be interesting myself.
Interesting to myself. Right. Okay.
Because I've learned that. And so I think those are key things.
Absolutely. Well, Dennis, man, this has been a very fascinating and astounding episode here. So if you can share with the audience, how can the audience follow you, if there's any way on social media, or if there's any special events you have going on?
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Principles.
Okay.
And it will share with you a course, an online training course. There's 5 modules that will take you step by step through every process from beginning to end, so that when you walk out of going through this course, there's handouts, there's assignments. It's like a workshop. It's like going to a seminar at your own convenience. And you can just do one little video at a time, one little module at a time, and it can take you through this process. And that's maximizing your potential.
Maximizing.
And in fact, if they want to do that, they can use the code. If they want the course, they can use the code maximize 197, and that
Maximize
will $100 off the course.
Okay. Matter of fact, I'm going to make sure I put that into the show notes here.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. So therefore, not only that, I want the audience to be able. So maximize 197. You said correct?
Right, that's the code, maximize 197.
And they will go to the website, maximize yourself.
No, and actually for that one, it's maximizing your potential.
Maximizing your potential. Okay.
That's the name of the seminar.
Perfect.
Maximizing your potential.
All right. I'm going to put that in the show notes, guys, as well as this will be in the description of the show. Please take advantage of this. As you can see, man, there's not many individuals walking the face of the planet that has a resume as impressive as Dennis here. As he has mentioned, for anybody that's been into the sales space or been in the MLM space, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. There's a lot of connotations about it. But Dennis is here to share with us. As you can see, you can follow a vision despite the roadblocks, despite what the perception may be. And you can be able to go ahead and lead a successful career. And not only that, help others do so, in the course of his career. So you never know. You can be someone to have that same story as well, too. So, Dennis, I want to thank you for blessing us with your tremendous story, your tremendous journey. Most people would think that, based upon this conversation, that, again, maybe have a perception, but towards the end, you highlighted how you even help those that's the underserved, right, in the prison ministry, right? And I haven't shared this with you, but even in myself, I've had a checkered background, and I end up doing almost a decade in prison, where I was released prior to the pandemic, and I've been able to turn my life around. And I have that same approach in being able to go ahead and transform individuals. And I love the statistic that you shared, how the recidivism rate is at 80 to 90%. But by exercising these principles, you're able to go ahead and bring it down to 10 to 14%, which that's phenomenal.
It's amazing.
It's truly, truly amazing. But I won't take up much of your time, Dennis. I want to thank you again. I'm going to make sure to go ahead and include all of the notes here. Guys, take advantage of maximizing your potential. This is a course that Dennis is releasing here, the online course that'll help you be able to go ahead and achieve to the next best level. I'm going to include the codes of Maximize 197. Also, check out his best-selling book, Maximize You, the 45 Principles to be able to go ahead and build success for yourself. But other than that, guys, you could check out the podcast Monday and Fridays at 8 p.m. as we're going to have guests like Dennis himself to be able to come on and share their blueprints to success. And as always, we're going to catch you on the flip side. All right. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Blueprint, yeah. Blueprint. This conversation about building up your blueprint. It's time to take it, cause time is wasted. Go grind and chase it, don't lose it. This generation need integration with information to move with. An inclination that is abiding in entertaining improvement. Yep, Wesley Paul with Blueprint. This guests are exclusive. Get on and tune in and then learn some new tips about credit, finance, investment. A nice chance to get rich and buy land. Flip it, quick 9 bands. Learn all the skills from Wesley did it. Learn how to build successful business. Run up a mill and get the digits. Run up a mill. Look, safe place where guests are speaking, based off financial freedom. All facts, no cap, believe it. Podcast, you have to see it.